morphogenetic field is essentially what higher states in the universe use to create anything, life, beings, whatever you want to call it. And so just be mindful. I'm going to use some technical terms here, which, as you listen to them, you're probably going to be able to relate them to more metaphysical terms that you may have heard. I'm going to use the technical terms simply because if anybody doesn't quite totally catch on to anything, you'll be able to take these technical terms and look them up and get more information that way. So when we talk about morphogenetic fields being, they're like, imagine a cloud of energy that creates something within it. So when we look at the theory of evolution by, as Charles Darwin gave us, we can look at the fact that, okay, so, a tadpole becomes a frog, frog becomes a fish, or an alligator, which goes up onto land. Eventually we get primates, and then we get human beings. While I don't totally discount evolution completely, the concept of a tadpole becoming a human being in several million years is more or less, and this was stated in 1910 by Nikolai Shellmarks, I believe, who said that essentially that's the sorry, not 1910, 1976, the potential for evolution, a randomly chaotic generation process creating a human being from a tadpole in several million years, was about like a tornado blowing through a junkyard and assembling a 747 jet. Okay, it's not possible. There is some guidance that's needed to do that. So when we hear about DNA, DNA is a thing. Obviously, every cell in our body contains our DNA, right? So obviously the DNA creates everything. Not really. The DNA, all the DNA does is it creates protein synthesis, which creates muscles and bones. So it takes all the various types of proteins, which there are hundreds, and it creates tissue. It creates organs, blood, your brain, right? Now, all that DNA is the same in your body. So how do we explain that if I have the same DNA in my hand as my foot, why does the hand come out looking different than the foot, unless there's intelligent design? Or not necessarily intelligent design, but divine, awareness that creates that, and not just the random chaos of things accidentally happening. Because then you say, okay, well, if that just randomly happens that a hand looks different than a foot, then why do all people look similar? And the answer is that we are a physical manifestation on this planet, which was created by, and here's where it's up to your interpretation, a soul, a god, an entity, a universal energy, whatever you want to call it. It generates a physical manifestation on this planet in a morphogenetic field. And so what is entailed with that, pardon me, is there's a collective gathering of energy, information, intelligence, sentience, and those forces work together to turn a very small thing into a very large thing. Very small into very large. And that happens It is a physical manifestation. We hear the term star seeds, right? So we're talking about little particles of energy, of sentient energy, floating around the universe. Suddenly, those particles are chosen or make the conscious decision to become physical manifestations. In order for that to happen, they go into a morphogenetic field. And from that, life is created. It's amazing, right? And all of these terms, like I've said, all of these terms, all of these theories, you can look these up. This is all based in fact. This is not my personal gnosis. The concept of recoding, the concepts of the morphogenetic field, these are not new. I've studied this for many years. I wasn't sitting around philosophically creating, thoughts and ideas. I have my own ideas about how it all works in a direct way, but I'll leave that sort of off to the side for now so that we can just embrace this concept and this idea. So now we have a physical manifestation, right? And that physical manifestation went from star seed, or, a part of a soul, and became a living, breathing entity. Obviously, that would be an incredibly painful, confusing, and overwhelming process. That transformation. To go from the infinite possibility of just floating around in the universe to here and now. Now you have to breathe, you have to eat, you have to drink. You have all of these requirements in order to have the human experience. And this is the purpose that a soul creates a physical manifestation. Why a starseed comes to be an entity living on this planet is to have the human experience. Our souls need to have these experiences to learn things that they cannot learn as particles in the universe. They need to have a body in order to experience and learn on a different level than what they learn, which is the spiritual. It's the ether. It's the way out there. It's not the same as what we learn. So, and in exchange, we then, from our soul, can gain information that we could never physically learn in our body. And we all have many, many ways of doing that. Meditation, trance, spell work. We all have a different way to do it, And so that's beautiful. It's a give and take. It's an exchange. It's a beautiful exchange. And we're incredibly blessed to be part of that exchange. But we have a lot of requirements. And I don't mean requirements in terms of the society notion. I mean requirements: you must eat, you must drink water, and you must breathe. You must take in vitamins, you must take in proteins. There's human synthesis requires things. These are requirements we have. And they are all things that put strain on the learning that our soul can do through our physical manifestation, on the healing that our soul, that our body is able to do for the collective that we are part of. Those things we can't change. What we can change, though, is the memories that are not positive, that came with us from the past lives of our soul, from the past lives of our ancestors, because there's an exchange there too. Sperm and egg. We carry the DNA of the entities on this planet that we were born into. We have a soul ancestry. We have a human ancestry. We have a family ancestry. And these things come with us. Many of them are positive. We are born, like 99.2% of human beings are born with a fear of heights, an awareness that heights are dangerous. That is an ancestral memory. Many of us are born with a fear of fire, ancestral memory. Fear of spiders. For me, it's bats. These all come from before. If they were with us when we were born, and they were not received through the information that we gained during this lifetime, then that's an ancestral memory. Okay? So when you're sitting on a couch talking to a psychiatrist for 5 years about what has happened in this lifetime, in order to fix yourself, there's many things you can't fix. You can't talk to your psychiatrist about what happened in the 1700s when your family was in Scotland, when my family was in Scotland. I mean, my family was in Scotland in the 1800s. You know, you can't discuss that. You don't have the information to give. And if you did, your psychiatrist wouldn't believe it anyway. Through our shadow work, we can explore here. And through trance, we can, through a long and difficult process, we can come to heal our ancestral memory, to cure us of the blocks that we have that prevent us from our highest good, the purpose that we are here. That is impaired by blocks, fears. Those things stop us from finding our true path. Yes, you can do that with shadow work. It's going to take time. There is a way through recoding that we can eliminate a lot of that work. Not all of it. You still have to do shadow work. That's still a necessary. If you want to live your life free of the fear created by negative experiences, you must do shadow work. However, I believe that through healing our ancestral memory, our family traumas, we leave ourselves with less shadow work to do. Therefore, we will make the most out of the time that we spend on our shadow work. So I've gone on a bit of a tangent there. I'd like to bring it back now. So we said starseed came from soul, became physical manifestation, human being body, right? That is the conscious, the brain that we use to walk around the world, the brain that tells us how to inflate and deflate our lungs, the brain that tells us I need to drink water, the brain that tells us you have a stomach pain because you haven't eaten. Okay, that is the conscious. That is, and we have let people attach a lot of negativity to the word ego, which is not the original intention of the word. That's we call that an etymological evolution, right? That word did not mean that. We've turned it into that. When Sigmund Freud gave us the term ego, what he was defining was just our consciousness. What makes us interact with the world on a direct and relatable way, you know, on that plane of thought, which is not the only thing, but it's required in order to remain alive. You must have you must make decisions in your conscious. Okay? Now, when we think about the conscious mind and the decisions that it makes, the actions that it takes, we can call that the first state of our consciousness, the conscious. I call it also the waking mind. It's awake. It's interactive. You know it's there. You have control over it. Because your conscious gives you signals, but it's up to you to do something with those signals, right? So if we take our first state of consciousness, this is our main consciousness. Okay, that's there at the bottom. Okay. Now, the conscious mind makes decisions, moves through the world, and creates a life for us in a very structured way. And it's like a pendulum, right? Okay? And our conscious mind knows good and bad, wrong and right, evil and just. You know, it knows just binary. The good and the bad, the wet and the cold, the wet and the dry, the hot and the cold. This is how our conscious mind thinks. And so, the decisions it makes are like a pendulum. And it sees a good and bad. Right? And like a pendulum, it just swings back and forth. And if you go too far to this side, it goes, oh, I'm way off track. I'm going too far. I'm losing balance. And it will send you in the other direction. Inherently. But it's attached to a fulcrum. So this is our conscious. Here, swinging around, back and forth. Limiting our possibility. We can't go too far from the good because the simple fact is we'll just swing back. If we are functioning in the conscious state only. Now, our consciousness has that's the pendulum, I call it. We have a fulcrum, right? This is where what the pendulum is attached to. If we're talking a divination pendulum, we're talking about the little pendulum that your hand is the fulcrum, right? This is where it is affixed. That doesn't change. The position of your hand might change, but the relation of the chain to your finger does not change, right? That's a constant. That's our unconscious, our sleeping mind. Okay, the unconscious functions in a different way. It serves us to protect us. It serves us to protect us. Because in our conscious state, as we know right and wrong, good and evil, we also know greed. We know that we want experiences. Our conscious mind tends to like instant gratification. Okay? Sugar, salt, a jacket, just things that make it feel good, right? Memes, instant gratification. Doesn't serve you any further than buzzy. It gives you a little buzz. All kinds of things give you a buzz. I don't mean that as in drugs and alcohol. Those aren't the only things that give you a buzz. And that's, you can get that experience from anything. It might be smaller. When people seek drugs and alcohol and things like that, they're looking for that buzz, but on a larger scale, because they have a void that they need to fill with a huge buzz. So that's where that comes from. But we all look for small buzzes. There's no denying that. That's what we're after. Our unconscious mind sees through that. Our sleeping mind is there to go, no, you may not. You should not. And that's where our fear dwells. Our conscious is not in control of our fear. Our subconscious is. because it's the fulcrum. It's the point that doesn't allow you to go too far to one side or the other, because it sees that as an imbalance, that it's dangerous. And so it serves to swing you back when you start going too far to the good. And you'll find that. Have you ever found that? Everything's going really good. Everything's good in your life. You're having a great week. Your interactions are great. You found, maybe you're dating, you found a good job, and everything's going great. And all of a sudden something happens and it stops. I've experienced it in my life. In my life, when I was 24 years old, I started a construction company. In the town that I lived in, the IGA, the grocery store roof collapsed due to snow load in the winter. I knew a very good construction person in that town who was semi-retired. He was contacted by the general contractor who came into town. They found out he was the best. They looked to him to fix it. He said, this guy started a company, you should go with him. Just like that, general contractor hired me to provide the labor, to provide the services to fix that roof. Huge job. When I was 24 years old, I started a construction company with, drum rolls, my tax return. I hadn't done a tax return in like 6 years. I got $3,000. I bought some tools. I hired some guys. I got a bookkeeper. I went through that process. It was a good year. I personally made $412,000 at the age of 24. And it was going great. But what happened was, I crumbled under the stress of it. Okay? Not necessarily in a negatively manifested way. I enjoyed the buzz of the success. And every minute of the day that I wasn't in that buzz, I was doing something to give myself buzz. Partying, having dinner parties, going and buying expensive clothes. I did all kinds of foolish things. I lost that company when I was 25. When I was 26 years old, I owed $33,000. That's the end result. That was my failure. Things got too good, swung back around. Since the day that I closed that company and had to explain to my friends and the people who helped me build that there was not a job anymore. Some of them having bought trucks, having signed mortgages. I had to explain to them that I ruined it all. And on that day I decided that I would find a way to find my true abundance. I knew that wasn't the way. That wasn't the method. Owning a construction company was not my method of abundance. Neither was money. And that was the money focus was the problem. Because when I had the money, it wasn't important to me. I didn't care. I threw it away to the point where I had none, and I could no longer operate due to the lack of funds. So my path is not money. It is not abundance of money. It is abundance of network. And that's what I'm working towards. And network on many, many levels. What we're doing right now is networking. We are all sharing in an idea. I am sharing the idea with you. You are taking the idea in. You are, in turn, and I can feel it, you all have good energy going out. It's cycling back and forth. This is a flow. This is great. This is what we're going to try to do tomorrow. When we create a morphogenetic field. We've already started doing that because we have a collective right now. We've all manifested good energy towards each other, and that creates a field. Right now, it's a field of positive attitude. What we want is creative energy. And from that field of creative energy, I want you to be able to get rid of the blocks and fears in your life that are stopping you from creating your true abundance and finding your true path. That's what we're going to do. That's what you're going to do. And we're going to do that together tomorrow. So, the fulcrum is our unconscious. Way back there, right? Sleeping mind. In control of the waking mind. Not in direct control, but stopping the waking mind from doing what it needs to do to create the abundance that will make the 3 states of consciousness function at their truest and ideal level. On their truest and most ideal level. Which is different for everyone. Abundance means something different to everyone. Right? Some people's idea of abundance is to heal children. Some people's idea of abundance is to have enough money that they can wake up in the morning without an alarm clock. They decide when they wake up. Some people's idea of abundance is to be able to travel wherever they want. 3 times a year. Or, all the time. These are all abundance, right? Because we know that our true path requires that abundance. That abundance is necessary to fulfill our true path, to walk on our true path. It's freedom. Right? So, our unconscious is not ideal because it's a fulcrum. It is tied so closely to our conscious that their range of possibility is only as far as the chain can swing. Right? But there's a 3rd state of consciousness. And this is called the superconscious. Consciousness. Really, that's a tough word for me. Pity that I chose to take up the path of talking about superconsciousness. But it is what it is. Now, the superconsciousness exists here. That's the aura. That's the point at which our aura converges with the universe. Right? This can also be established by science. And I will cite the source for that. And there's a single source, and it's undeniable. And I will cite that, and I will share it with you. I'll even share a video that explains it very well. Not by myself, but by somebody else. We're talking about somebody who was the master of his field for 45 years. So the superconsciousness is above us. Subconscious, sleeping mind, waking mind, superconsciousness. And what we can do, so when we look at our pendulum, it swings back and forth. It has a limit. When it gets to here, it's naturally going to swing back. That's gravity. That's how everything works. We can move this fulcrum, the unconscious, with the superconsciousness, right? If this is the side of abundance, and this is the side of fear, then we simply move this superconsciousness here. Now what happens? Unconscious is here. Sleeping mind is there. Consciousness, waking mind is here. Now, as that pendulum swings back and forth, it is never over here in a position of fear. It remains here in abundance, never leaving. Why? Because your superconsciousness has been reprogrammed. to live in a place of abundance and to never go to a place of fear. Does that make sense to everyone? Does that resonate with you? Shift it. You shift the thing that's in control of it all, your super consciousness. This is what created you. This is why you exist in the physical manifestation that you are. It's in control of everything. And all you have to do is shift it. And that's really simple. All you need is a morphogenetic field. And we can do that tomorrow. And you know how long it takes? 25 minutes. That's it. 25 minutes. And to understand how that's going to work, we need to understand that the universe is comprised of small pieces of energy and matter. All connected. Everything is connected. We know this, right? Everybody knows it. It's all connected on that level, on a higher level. What we need to do is find a way to connect our waking minds to each other on this level. And then abundance can be had globally. Healing can happen globally. Right? It's already done up here. Already done. We can do it here. We can't affect that. That's beyond us. That's above our super consciousness, therefore out of our control. But it's there. It's beautiful. It exists. Nebulas. Look at the Crab Nebula and witness an interaction of energy on a scale that you cannot possibly imagine. In the Crab Nebula, there are stars larger than our solar system. Our solar system contains more energy. Our sun contains more energy. 98% of the energy in our solar system is the sun. Now imagine a sun that is the size of our solar system. Imagine the energy there, right? We can't control that. That is a beautiful thing that's happening without us. And that's fine. But we can control this level, where we are. We can make that better. We can make it more abundant. We can make it about abundance instead of buzz. Instead of buzz. Instead of instant gratification, we can create a world where there is abundance for everything and everyone. Isn't that amazing? To think about that? Invite that thought, not into here, into your heart. Imagine with your heart the experience of living in a world where nobody's hungry, nobody's hurting, everyone is abundant, everything is abundant. Feel that. Tingles. It's incredible. I do that eight times a day. It's wonderful. I invite you to do the same. Now, cells and blocks of energy, you know, if we really look at it, the chair, couch, whatever you're sitting on, doesn't truly exist as we think of it. It's not solid. There is no solids. There's nothing concrete in the universe. That chair, that couch, whatever you're sitting on, is made up of a bunch of particles that are moving around really fast. But they're really close together. So they stay in that form. Right? We can change that. You know, we can, if it's a chair, it's made of wood. With that same wood, you could make a table, you could make a chair, you could make a skateboard that would move really fast instead of being stationary, right? Because the elements that create that thing are transversible. You can shift them around, you can turn them into different things. So these little cells that and blocks of energy that make up the entire universe are actually subject to observation. All of them. In 1910, Thomas Young. So, hold on a second. I was going to go Tarantino there, and I don't want to do that. We all know that the classic model for the atom, right? We have a nucleus at the center, and then we have protons and electrons, which are orbiting that nucleus, very much like our solar system orbiting the sun, right? Now, that's the traditional model. That's not actually what's happening, because what it actually looks like is like that. You know, nothing is stationary. There's no stationary nucleus in an atom. There's no orbit. It's all just energy waves flying around, right? And so protons, neutrons, electrons, that's very old science. It's ridiculous that that generic model is still used in schools. Liquids, gases, and solids shouldn't even be used anymore as the three states of matter, because there's plasma, and that's been a long time that's been around. So, you know, our school systems are archaic and ridiculous. So, in 1910, Thomas Young took a proton acceleration device, essentially a photon gun, right? And this is a lot like that's where the laser guns from science fiction came from, because there's a thing that can shoot photons. So he created this gun that would shoot these in a concentrated beam like a laser. And then he took a piece of cardstock, you know, like cardboard, like poster board, and he made. No, this experiment was called the double slit experiment. Pretty simple name, pretty simple science, really, except for the fact that you have to build a gun that will shoot photons, which is very difficult. So he took this piece of poster paper and he made 2 slits in it. And beyond that, he put a piece of photographic paper. You know, that, you know, in a red light, when the light hits that paper, it leaves an image. Right? And so he fired those photons through those 2 slits at that piece of paper, through which it found its way through 2 slits. On the other side here, it left 2 clear lines of light. Of course, that's, you know, practical. Of course that would happen, right? Now, when he was observing, the hypothesis that he had was that when it was not observed, when somebody was not putting expectant manifestation on it, an expected result, and using logic, that it wouldn't do that. So he set a timer, and at a certain time, the photon gun would fire photon energy at the paper with the 2 slits. And of course, when he came back, it looked exactly the same, right? Wrong. In some ways it looked the same. There were 2 clear slits. However, there were also a whole bunch of other lines. Completely, like, this happened over and over and over and over again. 1,000 times. A constant. It was literally what happened. Every time the test was conducted, unobserved, a different reaction occurred. This piece of photographic paper look different every time. The reason is because we expect that when something is propelled by force and is traveling in a straight line, it will remain in a straight line. That is what we know. That is our logic. Our logic dictates that that is what happens, right? So we manifest that. We literally manifest that. And so, all the little photons travel in a completely straight line. When we don't observe, and the energy is allowed to work outside the constraints of the silly logical rules that we put on things, the protons traveled in what we call a wave sequence. They did not travel in a straight line. They were exploratory. They were searching for a place in the universe. They were searching for a morphogenetic field in which to create. That's what energy does. That is what energy does. And that's what energy does when we're not observing it, when we're not telling it that we know what it is going to do, when we're not logically saying this is what you will do, because that's manifestation. When you believe a certain outcome will occur, you are willing it to happen with your superconsciousness, which is extremely powerful. Powerful enough to create you. And you are an incredibly amazing, complicated, artistic, unbelievable entity. And something that can create that out of nothing. Out of a sperm. This small. Like that small. 1,000,000 times that small. As that dot. This is a 0.7 millimeter pen. Creates a dot that size, right? And we're talking 1,000,000 times smaller than that. And it makes you. In an extremely short amount of time. In terms of the universe. If you take the entire existence of humanity, our entire history, go back as far as you want. You can go back to Neanderthal, you can go back further than that. The entire existence, and you compare it to the existence of the earth, humanity would be a dime sitting next to the Empire State Building in New York. Is that boggling? Yes, right? And yet, your superconsciousness can create you what as you are today in such a short span of time. That is unbelievable. That is extremely hard to wrap your brain around. However, because there is a super consciousness in control of it, that is manifesting it, it is not constrained by your logical boundaries. And it can do incredibly amazing things when you don't dictate what it can do. When you allow it to have a blank canvas and an unlimited realm of possibility, it can do unbelievable things. All you have to do is make those things believable. All you have to do is release the fear that constantly causes you to manifest that you don't become abundant. And there are people who do that. There are people who many would call broken and need to be fixed, who are incredibly abundant. Michael Jackson, incredibly abundant, incredibly successful. regardless of what turned out in the end. He did that as what many would consider to be a broken person in need of repair. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. And if anybody tells you that, then you send them to me. You tell them, there's nothing wrong with me. I have bad memories. I have blocks created by those bad memories. Those bad memories, many of them I had nothing to do with. I inherited them. They're not mine. I didn't do anything to cause them. It's not a karmic retribution. No. They're just there. You happen to inherit them. And you have to work around them or with them. You can choose to work with them, or you can choose to work in spite of them. You can choose to take your superconsciousness and move it away from the yuck so that it can function and swing that pentacle in a place of bang instead of a place of, gee, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the way to go. If you're doing that, you're not succeeding. You think great athletes go, ugh, I don't know if I can set that record. No, they don't. They look at themselves in the mirror in the morning and they say, I'm going to set that record. Today, I'm going to beat my previous record. And they keep doing that. And as long as they keep doing that, they keep succeeding. They keep excelling. Sure, their bodies are predisposed to be stronger, faster, whatever. But they are doing the absolute potential with their body. And that absolute potential is something that wasn't thought to be possible 20 years previous. They're breaking the rules and the logic of those that came before them by saying, I will. I don't care if you say I can, I will. You're not broken. You're not broken. You have blocks. Those blocks aren't your fault. Things happen to you. Things happen to your parents. Things happen to your grandparents. Things happen to your soul in a lifetime 250 years ago. None of which you have any control over. None of which you invited. None of which you deserved. So don't forgive yourself for what you feel you did to cause yourself to have this garbage, this yuck. Don't forgive yourself for it. Just let it go. Take your super consciousness away from that stuff. That's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to create a morphogenetic field that will allow us to reprogram our super consciousness to operate outside of the fear and the blocks that stop us from achieving abundance and truth. That's all we're going to do. It's a shift. It's like moving a box 3 feet across the floor. That's all it is. It's all energy. It's the same thing. The box is made out of the same energy source and is connected to the same energy that your superconsciousness is attached to, and your superconsciousness is attached to the same energy source and the same energy as the Crab Nebula. As we discussed, that's a million times greater source of energy than our sun, and you're connected to that. Do you think that kind of energy knows limitations? No, it doesn't. There are no limitations to energy. None. It cannot be created or destroyed. It's there. It always has been. It always will be. You can change the state of matter. You can change the state of energy. You can manipulate it. You cannot get rid of it. And when it comes down to a particle so small that we cannot yet see it, which is why we can't prove string theory beyond a shadow of doubt, which is why we cannot prove quantum mechanics, because it's too small. We can't see it. We have no ability to see it. At this point, somewhere there's a scientist, there's a small, and maybe a small child, who's saying, you know, I think I can make something to see that tiny, tiny thing. Or maybe that entity that's going to do that is a sperm. Or maybe in a future lifetime, you will do that. Perhaps that's your soul's end purpose. Perhaps in this life, you need to heal children so that you can, because that's a building block. It's a piece you need in order to be the person who creates the machine that looks at the tiny particle and goes, now I understand. And shares that with everyone, and then true abundance happens. Maybe that's the purpose. You don't know. All you can do is fulfill the true path that your current physical manifestation was created to do. You're here to gain the experience with your consciousness, your subconsciousness, and your superconsciousness. Your waking, sleeping, and supermind. Those three things are going to take the experience that you gain in this physical manifestation back to your soul and go, here, put it in the library. Let's see what we can do with that when we're done with these physical manifestations and we ascend to a higher level than even they are at. Your soul's at a really high level, but there's ascendance from that. Everything goes up and up and up and up and up. Everything. So, there's the infinite possibilities. Everything is possible. And I don't mean anything, I mean everything. You need to let go of the boundaries and the limitations that your blocks create that stop you from everything being possible. The things that make that possible. Only the things that fit within these two lines are possible because you have fear, because you have blocks. That's it. That's all I got for you. So let's tomorrow create a morphogenetic field, and let's use that to shift our super minds, our super consciousness, and become just absolutely abundant, and to find our way to our true path, and then to fulfill the true purpose that we have in the universe. Can we do that? Is anybody interested in doing that? Because I will. I will. It doesn't matter if any of you are there or all of you are there. I will do it. Because I know that that's what I need. That I know that that is part of my purpose. It's the first step on the path that leads to my purpose. So I'll do it. And I welcome you to help so that it's better than even my super consciousness can do. If we take all of our super consciousness and we like cram it into like a small space, it's like a black hole. The incredible amount of energy and possibility in that's just condensed into this incredible field, and then you could just drop a tiny, tiny, tiny particle of matter and just go. That's what I want to do. True abundance. From a tiny, tiny, I don't know if you've ever seen a basil seed. It's like minute. It's barely bigger than a grain of sand. That you could have basil for a whole year off of that one little tiny seed. That's what the universe is capable of. That's what basil is capable of. Right? So compare yourself, compare a basil seed to yourself and say, if I'm, if that tiny, 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 tiny thing is capable of that great, great thing, and to provide abundance not only for itself, and to create its own photosynthesis, and to produce oxygen for all of the animals that need oxygen, but to create flowers, to propagate itself, to spread its numbers. Like, just imagine what a massively huge thing you can do. And try not to imagine it here. Try to imagine it in your heart. Because your heart is tied much closer to your super consciousness and your super mind than this is. This is standing in the way. It can be the door blocking you from your heart, from your super consciousness. So turn your mind into an open door. Don't allow it to stand in the way anymore. And just be on that path starting tomorrow. I really hope you guys have an amazing night and an amazing day. I hope that everyone you interact with can feel the energy that's coming off of you. I really hope that you stay in a place of clarity and vision. And I really, really, really hope to see you tomorrow. Okay? Send me any messages if you've got any questions. Please like, follow, and share. No, seriously. Please like, follow, and share. Please tell all your friends. Bring other people in on this so that they can do the same thing. It's free. I haven't even mentioned a cent to anyone at all about this. This is not a thing. This is not a monetary thing. That's not what this is. This is on a different level. We're talking about other levels. That's what this is. This is a different level. So please share with your friends. Bring people in. Let people know that there are things that are possible that they've never even considered. Okay? Have a good night, everyone. Blessings, skull, and slate.